I have just 5 questions for you. Can you answer these 5 questions? Now, it's okay if you can't, but if you can answer these 5 questions, then you're going to be well on your way to having a successful acting career. I hope that's as much of a tease as you need to stay with us. This is Casting Actors Cast.
Welcome to Casting Actors Cast. It's the podcast for actors in the business of show. Here is your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello. Oh, that never gets old. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and welcome to Casting Actors Cast, the podcast for actors. Everything that you need to know about what it is to be an actor in the business told to you by a casting director. I'm a casting director with McCorkle Casting in New York, and I've been casting for about 10 years now. Pat McCorkle is the owner of McCorkle Casting, and she's been doing this since 1979. And I wanted to give you this 5-question quiz, but it's not kind of like a school quiz, so don't get freaked out. You know, I always just to get freaked out by school quizzes. Don't do that. But I have these 5 questions that I think will really help you focus and kind of align your thoughts to what it is to having an acting career. So I hope that this is going to be of use to you today, and stick around because I think you'll find it valuable. At least I hope you will. This is that moment in the podcast where I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot to me that you would take the time to download or listen to the podcast, or go to YouTube, because we're on YouTube right now and the channel is getting some pretty cool views, and I hope to get more, though. I have to be honest with you. I've kind of worked out a lot of the technical kinks. And then third of all, if you go to the website Casting Actors Cast, you'll see some downloadable previous episodes there, as well as some freebies. And also there's a little form to fill out called Dive into the Talent Pool. And that's a way that you can give me some information or ask me some questions, because after all, it's your question that helps drive these podcasts. So I have information and things that I can share with you about the business. So if you go to Casting Actors Cast, fill out that form. What'll happen is kind of cool, because it'll take you to a free downloadable PDF book, 100-page book, called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio. It's a voiceover workshop manual for professional actors. I wrote this book about 5 or 6 years ago as an addendum to the teaching that I do in workshops for voiceovers, and it's been quite successful. And I thought, you know what, I just want to give it away. It's kind of a free gift. Hopefully that's enough of a promotion for you to want to go online and just let me know who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing. By the way, I don't sell your information or do anything like that. And as you well know, I don't monetize this podcast at all. Although I must say, there's part of me that's kind of looking for a sponsor. So if you have any sponsorship ideas, I'd love to have that, because I think it's been exciting to grow this podcast exponentially. The way it's been growing is just kind of mind-boggling and very, very cool. So that's it for my shameless promotional announcements about the website, about YouTube, and about downloading the podcasts as well. So thanks so much. Those 5 questions, so they may seem a little bit easier for you to digest at first, but I want to go into each of these 5 questions a little more in depth. And in that way, my wish is that you can start to reflect and take a look at all of the choices that are out there for you, and also kind of give you the appropriate nudge. The nudge being that of a professional in the business like myself, who really wants nothing more than you to succeed, to attain your goals as an actor. So whether you are a professional actor, just kind of tuning in and listening in on what I have to say, that's cool. Or maybe you're relatively new to acting. Maybe you're thinking about going to school in the fall, or maybe you are already in school, or maybe you're thinking about what it is to be an actor. What do I have that I might be able to use in an acting profession? All of those are great, so you're more than welcome here. But here are the 5 questions. And I'm going to explain each of these questions just a little bit so that you don't get overly confused. And by the way, this is not meant as any way to kind of beat you up or pressure you into anything. This is just a way that you can kind of take your quiet time and reflect on some of these questions. so that you can feel more confident and more comfortable with the choices that you do make, after all. Question number 1. Who is or will be your agent, manager, or career coach? In other words, if you already have an agent, that's great. Are you cultivating that relationship? How are you cultivating that relationship? Is it a good relationship? In other words, are you being sent out enough with really interesting projects, with good auditions? Do you feel comfortable enough to call your agent and talk to them about some career advice? Maybe there's an agent that you have that is not that interested in spending a lot of career development time, but only is aggressively working at getting you auditions. Maybe that's perfect for you. Now, if you don't have an agent, that's okay. Now is the time to be studying what kind of agent are you looking for. Now, I did a whole podcast on agents, so it behooves you, I think, to go back and listen to those agent manager podcasts that I've done in the past. But the question that you need to ask is, are you looking for the kind of agent that is going to support who you are as an actor, as a talent? And so if you don't have an agent now, and you're interested in becoming a professional actor, know that having an agent is probably the most important thing for you next to consider. There's no time like the present, but what it entails is for you to do first and foremost your homework by finding out the following. How large is that agency? What departments are there in that agency? Let's say you are from a smaller city, or the nearest city isn't really that big, but it's really important that you find out, is there an agent in the city, the closest, nearest proximity to where you're living? That can be really useful. So even though you might think, I'm only going to need an agent when I'm in a big city, that's not really true. There are opportunities out there. There are agents and managers all over the country. And do some research. Find out if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Chicago, if you're in Florida, if you're in anywhere in the Midwest, St. Louis, Kansas City. There are agencies out there that are representing talent now. Do your homework and find out so that you can answer that first question of who. Who is or will be your agent? Now, it can also be a manager. That's great. And if those two choices aren't really strong for you, then it's important for you, I think, to consider a career coach, somebody who is in your corner. It can be a peer. It doesn't have to be somebody of authority. But it's also got to be somebody who knows you well enough to help push you gently in the right way to get the kind of representation that you're going to be really happy with. So although you may not get an agent right away, at least you're working with somebody who's kind of telling you, what have you done to look for agents? What kind of research have you done? What have you found out about those agents that you have researched? So that's the big question, number 1, who? Question number 2, what are you doing for your career in terms of career advancement? So that literally means, what are the steps you have? After all, you are the CEO of your own company. What are you doing to help propel your career advancement? Now, I mentioned earlier about maintaining a relationship with an agent. That's great if you have an agent. Now, if you don't have an agent, then obviously career advancements means that you're doing the work to find an agent. How are you cultivating relationships within the industry? That means, are you meeting casting directors? Are you meeting with directors? Are you taking classes either at a local community college, at a theater in the area? Maybe there's a theater with an educational component to it. Are you taking classes there? Are you enrolled in university? And if you are, what kind of classes are you taking? In other words, taking a mental assessment of each of those things that you're doing to advance your career on a regular basis, not just a one-off thing, but having a career plan in place is really helpful and something that you should be thinking about on a regular basis. So that's what. So who or will be your agent? What are you doing for your career advancement? And number 3, why should you maintain a logbook? Why? It's a great question. Are you maintaining a logbook, first and foremost? If not, then let's go back to number 2. What are you doing for your career advancement? Retaining and maintaining a logbook is really, really an important step that a lot of actors don't do, and I'm very, very surprised by that. So, why should you maintain a logbook? Well, the obvious reason is that you can write down who you met at that audition. What was the name of the play? Was the director there? Was the artistic director there? If it's a film or television project, who was in the room? What material did you have to work off of? Was it a full script? Was it just a handful of sides? That should be in your log as well. A couple of other things that you might not have thought of. What are you wearing at that audition? Or what did you wear at that audition? You know, it's interesting that clothing can speak a lot of volumes about how you are being viewed by others. And so taking an inventory of what you wear to an audition can really, really be helpful. There are some casting directors who feel pretty strongly that, especially for film and television, that if you wear a particular outfit at a theater or film audition, that it behooves you, if you get a callback, to wear the same thing at the callback. After all, the logic is that it got you the callback, not necessarily just the outfit, but remembering you and remembering those good feelings about you are very, very important. And so that might trigger something in the casting director or in the director or in the producer. So those are good reasons why you want to maintain a logbook about what you wore. Also, there's a podcast about the actor's wardrobe. I'm not here just to talk about other podcasts, but it's an earlier podcast, and I don't think it's been seen or heard by as many people as I think should pay attention to it. So do check that out if you're so inclined. So that's why you should maintain a logbook. But another reason for maintaining a logbook, which is, I think, very, very valuable, and that is that you can write down and log what you did at that audition. See, if you make a note about your character choices, for example, and the material that you did and your character choice, so that when you get a callback, you'll be able to remember what you did. Because if all the stars are aligning and you're getting a lot of auditions, you might not remember what you did at that audition a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. So keeping copious notes in a form of a logbook, date, time, what you wore, what you did as far as the audition was concerned, will really pay big dividends. Now, even if you're in college or even if you're in high school, no matter what, keeping a logbook, a track of you as a professional in the business is going to be very, very reassuring. It's going to be a wonderful support document for you to carry forth when you become more professional, more successful. So number 4, where do you see yourself in 6 months' time? Where do you see yourself in a year's time? Now, I know a lot of people are adverse to sort of setting, 1 month, 6 month goals. I guess I'm not necessarily suggesting you set a goal like I'm going to have an agent within 6 months or I'm just not going to be an actor anymore. Nothing like that. But where you see yourself is a different kind of projection. It's the kind of projection that you can literally use your imagination, use your energy, your thought process to really set yourself into a future dynamic. Where would you like to be in 6 months' time? Where do you see yourself in 6 months' time? Or a year? Where would you like to be in a year? So you can set goals, but I'm not talking about, success or failure or thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm just talking about the visualization. Boy, did I just say that in a weird way? Visualization. Wow. I'm a little tired. You have to forgive me. It's been kind of a rough day. Visualization. Okay, never mind. But you know what I'm talking about. Projecting into the future. that can be really helpful, I think, as well. Because first of all, it shouldn't cause more stress, right? It shouldn't. It really should be a logical, progressive thought pattern, especially because once you establish those kinds of thought patterns in a professional vein, you're going to feel more like you're in the profession. Make sense? I guess psychologists would call it conditioning, that you're conditioning yourself to making choices that'll help propel you to that visualization. I still didn't do it right. So that's what I'm suggesting you consider. And the fifth and final question, when are you going to feel successful? This is a tough question. My hope is that you've answered all of those first four questions. But what I find most fascinating is most actors really have a hard time feeling successful because they set up these unrealistic goals for themselves. They set up a scenario that if you're not making a XYZ amount of money, for example, or if you haven't gotten 2 great film roles in 6 months or a year, then that's not successful. Success is such a personal, self-generated decision that don't let those external machinations, I said that right, affect the way you feel about what the success model is. Because after all, this is a very, very unusual profession. You don't go into it like you would an MBA, where you can kind of project how much money you might be making at a certain amount of time in a career, or a lawyer, or a doctor. The arts are just a different kind of animal. And so really knowing what success means to you and making that choice and that decision now is only going to serve you, because you'll stop beating yourself up. You'll stop looking at yourself through a critical lens and start embracing all of this reconditioning as part of the journey you're on to be a successful actor. I hope that's been helpful. Let me just go over those again. Who is or will be your next agent or manager? What are you doing for your career advancement? That means now on a regular basis. Why should you maintain a logbook? Where do you see yourself in 6 months? Or where do you see yourself in a year? And finally, when will you feel successful? Think about those questions. Hey, do me a big favor, would you? I would love to hear back from you. If you can answer those questions, I would love to know. If their questions are difficult for you, maybe I can offer you some guidance. I'm happy to respond. I try my best to respond to every email that I get. And I'd be glad to address that with you. But I also would love to be able to share your journey with others. Because I know, as cliche as this sounds, we're all in this together. As a casting director, I can't do my job without you. And you know what? You can't do your job without a casting director who knows who you are and who understands your talent and knows that you're going to be right for that particular project that we're working on. Now, that just takes time. That just takes time in terms of developing relationships. That just takes time. But your burden, if it is a burden after all, is to embrace all of these steps in a systematic way, because only in that way will you really be able to feel good about being the CEO of your own company. But also, I believe very firmly that it is with structure that you can find a way to maintain your creativity. I really believe that. There are lots of creative people out there that without structure, they're not accomplishing their goals. So be a goal accomplisher, will you? I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. This is Casting Actors Cast. Thanks for listening.
Casting Actors Cast is made possible with your support just by listening. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.